I'm Dani Lee and welcome to my workshop. We're going to be making lanterns. So here is one I made earlier, and there we have the finished sides. I've left this one a little bit unfinished so that I can show you the inside. So inside there is a structure made from withies and masking tape, and there's the candle at the bottom. And then on top of this framework goes white tissue paper, and then on top of the white tissue paper we put the coloured tissue paper. So that's the different stages of the process of making this. Here we've got, so that we can access the candle to light it, we've got a door that opens and sticks shut, and at the top we've got a hole, and this is the chimney hole, so that all the hot air can escape. So there we have this. So to make this, you've got a kit. Just briefly go through the kit. You should have a candle holder. So what you might want to do, I don't know how this is going to arrive with you, but it could be all wonky out. So just readjust your candle holder so the candle's pointing upwards. You might have to twiddle the sticks as well so that they're a cross. You've got some masking tape, sponge, glue, different tissue papers, coloured and white. What you'll need to also provide for yourself is a plastic tray, just big enough to fit the sponge in, and a pair of scissors, maybe a rag is always useful, and a pair of secateurs or pliers, or wire cutters, and a felt tip pen. So also you've got your withies. The withies should be bendy like this. If they're not bendy and they're snapping when you go like this, they will need soaking. So to do that, you could leave them in a bucket overnight, just stand them up with the fat end in the bucket. If that is still not working, they might need, I don't know, depending on how dry they've got before they've got to you, you might need to wrap them in a wet towel and leave that overnight, and that should do it. They'll be nice and bendy again once you've done that. And so when you're designing your lantern, just keep going back to the work that you did with Claire, so that creative writing workshop, looking at your writing, and that will inform or inspire you in the shape of your lantern, the colouring of your lantern, and some words that you can write on it at the end. Okay, so let's get started. To begin, you'll need your withies. Here are the withies. They've got a thick end, and all the way down to the other end is quite a thin whippy end. So watch out for eyes with the thin whippy end. You'll also need your centre cane. You've got about 2 meters of that. You should have about 10 withies. Your candle holder. So this is a candle with wire twisted on it, and it is stuck to some withy underneath, and you'll need your masking tape, and then all of that should be in your kit. What you'll also need are any of these things. So to cut the withies and the centre cane, you'll either need a pair of secateurs, just garden secateurs, or pliers. Usually on a lot of pliers there are a sharp bit there so that you'll be able to cut the withy with, or some wire cutters. So let's begin. So you take your, let's move that out the way, take your candle holder, and to begin, so the candle holder is sitting on the base. This is the base of your lantern. So what we're going to do to start is to finish the base off. So we're going to attach some withies here and here and make a square around this cross. So I'm going to take the withy and measure up, so it wants to be a little bit longer than the point to point where you're going to be sticking it on. So I'm going to cut it there. I'm going to take my secateurs because I find them easiest to use. Give it a snip. Right, so that's the end, that's the bit that I want to stick on. So I'm going to use masking tape to do this with, and what you need is a piece of masking tape that's probably be a bit longer than your finger to the base of your hand. And what I generally do is stick loads of these to the table, like you're wrapping birthday presents. Just stick quite a few of these onto the table, ready to go. Now, to begin with, take your two pieces and hold them fairly securely, and you're going to use just the very end, the very end of your masking tape. So you're making like a flag, so this is all hanging loose, and that's where you start to begin to tape. So we're going to wrap it round this way and then through the gap and around the other way. Right, so once it's taped on as you like it, we're going to give it a little squeeze all the way around, and that really secures it in place. Right then, take another piece of tape, do the flag again, just a little flag with a tag, wrapping it around that way, then the other way, going through the gap there and around, there we go, and giving it a squeeze. So we've got that bit attached. See, I've cut that probably a little bit too long there, that's fine. At the end we're going to cut all the extra bits off, so it's better to have a little bit too much than not enough. So I'm going to do this again for every side. So cutting that and taking my flag, wrapping it around. Give it a squeeze. Really important to give these a squeeze when you've done the sticking, so that all the bits of masking tape are sticking to where you need them to be stuck. And we'll make a good strong frame for our lanterns. So I'm cutting a few more just to stick on the edge of my table, ready to go. Okay, and there we go, do this one. And another one from here to here. There we go, right, and there. Even sometimes the gap's really small to squeeze it through, but just squidge it through that gap. Makes a stronger connection if the tape is going in different directions. And then we're going to use one more piece to complete the square. Squeeze. Okay, and that piece here. Right, now we've got a good strong base for our lantern. Fantastic. Next, we're going to do some uprights. So we'll take a full length widdy here, and we'll probably just use the top section of that. So that's the thinner end. So I mean, it's up to you, but the lowest your lantern, or the shortest your lantern wants to be, is probably a good 2 foot. So I'm going to make it maybe go for about 3 foot here, and snip a piece off. And what we're going to do here is attach these upright. So there's our base. This gets a bit tricky now, so what I'm going to do is cut all of my masking tape that I think I'm going to need, which is going to be 5 pieces for this. Make them a bit longer now because they've not only got to go round you upright, but they've got to go around this join that we've already got done here. So masking tapes are a bit longer. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Right, ready to go. So I might put that on its side, it's probably easier for you to see. Okay, so if you've got somebody else around that can do the holding for you, this would be a lot easier. So I'm doing it on my own here, but if you've got someone that can hold, and then maybe you can stick, or the other way around, it does make life a little easier. So go all in different directions around that join. Now it's going to probably all feel a little bit unstable now with this whipping about the place, but just go careful and it'll all come together and make a nice secure shape once we've finished. But for now, the widdies, and it doesn't feel like a very strong structure, but it will. So another piece coming in here. Just find the best place to put it. It might be on that side of the join, it might be that side of the join, but certainly keep it on the outside of the square, so not on the inside here. Keeping it on the outside of the square so that our lanterns aren't too small. So you don't want the lantern to be any less than 1 foot in width, because otherwise when we cover it with paper and light it, the paper will end up too near the flame. So we want to keep the lantern a good size to keep it away, to keep the sides away from the flame. So I'm going to turn that round one more time and get another piece of withy. So another flag, sticking it on the end first, so we've got a nice tail, and going around the join back to our bottom of our upright, and then around again. Go, and giving it a good squeeze in all directions, making sure that masking tape is stuck on nicely. Right, last piece. I think I'm going to cut one now. So I've got a full length withy here, and I just need to measure up the length that I want that. Snip there, up there. And keep all these bits that you cut off. They're all going to be useful at a later stage in the making of this. Right, we go round. There we go. Okay, give it a good squeeze, and that's all our 4 uprights on. Fantastic. Right. So next we're going to establish the height of our lantern. The minimum height you'd really want is about 70 centimetres, so I'm just going to measure that. There we go, so that's about 70 centimetres. So at this height I'm going to take a little bit of tape off that last piece on the table and just tack that together. We're going to readjust that maybe a little bit later, so it just needs a small amount of tape around that join there. Okay, so what we've got here, and we're not going to cut off any ends yet because we might take a little bit more height later. If you can imagine, there's going to be paper along all of these surfaces, so we don't want our paper to be too near that candle flame. So what we do to to avoid that is we make another square like the square frame around the base at the bottom, and we just insert that in here and it opens it up. So if we take some withies and secateurs, and I'm going to make the square probably a little bit above the candle, and if I want to stretch this open, I'm going to stretch it. All these withies are very bendy, so you could pull it like that far apart, however far apart you want it, but just, yeah, I'll cut it there, and we can always snip off any extra later. So a bit above the candle it's going. Remember the tag, and it's going around that way and around that way, and we'll give it a squeeze. Right, so I'm going to work all the way around the candle, the lantern, making this square just to bring out the shape of it. So it's going to, instead of having straight sides now, it's going to have curved sides. So the longer these pieces are that you put on, the more of a curve. So you can see the shape I'm getting, and then it tapers. If this stick was longer, you'd get more of a coming out here and then going in. So you can have a play around with that. You could even do it different on different sides. So this could be smaller, this side, and other sides could be bigger. You can just play around with it, but certainly add this square in just to, on a practical level, to bring the lantern edges away from that flame. We don't want any lanterns catching on fire. So there we go, around here. And give a little push and a bend to add this one on. Okay, and squeezing them together, turn that round again, so you can see this one's naturally kind of bending in quite a lot here, so we're going to stretch that one right out. So hold it there and see how far I want it. Yeah, probably about there. So I'll cut it here. This one to here first. Up. This needs holding in place. Just wants to go back in, so we're really bending this withy out. Okay. Right, and the last one here. Use this. That open to about there. Right, there we have it. So the lantern is now nice shape. Tapers in there, lovely, really beautiful shape to it. What I'd like to do now is, in this section, instead of it just going straight up to a point in the middle, I'm going to take this I mean, this in itself now, this is a really great lantern. So you could stop here if you'd like. I'll show you a little bit of structural strengthening maybe we could do on this, but basically this is a good shape. You could add a little bit more tape here and then cut these off, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. So I'm just going to cut into that masking tape to take it off and get a little bit more ready. And instead of bunching it together in the middle, I'm going to make these ones a bit longer and these ones a bit shorter, and then our lantern goes off to one side like that. It's got, actually the inside edge we're going to bend a little, so if you work along it, if you want to bend your withies in a certain direction, you can just ease them along. I'm holding both hands and that my thumbs are quite active in this as well. That just helps it to make that curve. So I'm going to do it to this one as well. Okay, just working along really gently. If you go too hard here, they'll snap, and you don't want snapped withies. If you did snap it, I would suggest you just cut it where the snap is, and then say you had two here that you'd snapped, you cut them apart, overlap them and just tape it together, lots of tape around there, and that'll be fine. That quick fix job. Right, so we've got a little curve here. Now I'm going to bunch these together again. I'm going to go around, that's better curve now. So those inside ones are curving the way I want them to. Give that a little bit more at the bottom. There we go. Right, bunch them together. Make this side shorter and this side longer. And that gives us a nice shape to it. That's not so symmetrical. Goes off to one side. Right. So I'm taping that together, just hold that in place. And I might give that a little bit more tape. There's a few withies that are under pressure there. There we go. And that is a very important join. And so now I'm happy with that shape. I'm going to need a bit more strengthening at the bottom there in a moment. So what I'm going to do is cut these off now. As soon as you've decided you're... Now I could have made this a bit taller. I could have tied it together at this height here, but I wouldn't go right to the end. So you always want to maybe lose a little bit at the end, that weak, very thin end. So that would definitely get chopped off. Right, so now we've got a nice shape, slightly wonky. It's kind of the box at the bottom needs to be straight, so we need to use some withies to strengthen this up so that it stays in that shape and not off to one side. So I'll show you from here. So we really want the box to be more like that. So we've got to look at, so what we need here is some withies going across triangulation pieces, and that'll hold it in its nice box shape at the bottom, because as it stands like this, the flame would be too near this edge. So definitely that flame's got to be in the middle of that bottom box. So let's add some more withies in just to hold that in place. So I'm just, I think actually going this way would help quite a lot. Why don't we turn it over and do that on that side? Across here. Might take more than one. Oh, that's a good size. So that's onto here and through the gap in all different directions you want your tape to go. we go, give it a good squeeze. Remember that joint is going to be under pressure in a moment when we have bent and stuck this one on. So we're going to get this into the right position, which is about there. So I'm going to hold that. This is where there's somebody helping you might come in handy, but it's doable on your own as well. So I'm holding that really well with this hand so it doesn't slip until I've got the tape really firmly in place. And I might even give that a squeeze. It's sort of holding. I'm going to give it another bit of tape just because that joint is holding so much. There. Great. So give that a good squeeze, and that side. We can cut this bit off just so it stands up again. Maybe cut that bit off even as well. Whoop. And that one. There we go. So that should stand up. Oh, that's much better. Right. So now we've got a wonk going that way. So let's fix that by adding some triangulation in again. So that's when I mean triangulation, so that was a square, now it's two triangles, which is a much stronger shape than a square. So this is meant to be a square, so we need something that will hold it in that shape. So it's going to be turning this square into two triangles again, and I would say from here to here. That will do it. Okay, let's find some withy for that. And what we could do is not even bother cutting this, and we'll cut it afterwards. So I'm going to stick that to there. And around. This join is getting huge now. We've got about 5 or 6 bits of withy joining here. That's okay. Maybe a little bit more, just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Right. Squeeze. Okay, now this one. So I need to gather my bits of masking tape again. Right. And right, so we've got to push it into shape. There we go. That's a good square. So I'm looking at this shape, making sure this is square. Yep, it is. Oh, just dropped it a bit then. There we go. Do that again. Okay. And bring it around and around. Give it a squeeze and another bit. Very nice. Okay, then let's cut off the excess. And there we have a much squarer box. Just checking the sides, yeah, that's great. Okay. So, in theory, you should, at this stage, be able to throw this against a wall and it not smash to pieces. So I challenge you to give that a go. It's going to go off camera when I do this, but I'll let you know. I'll bring it back and let you know how it goes. All right, 1, 2, 3. Yes, and we are all still in one piece. Perfect. Ta-da! Great, and the candle's even still in. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to neaten it up a little bit here. Chopping off all these bits. There we go, and there. Okay, so now I think I'd quite like to funk this up a little bit. So I'm going to bring in my centre cane now. So the centre cane is this, and I've got this, let's tidy up a bit so I've got this curve going in this direction. I'd quite like another curve to come out and point over into that direction. So you could either do that with withies, by sticking that alongside. Whoa, these whiffy willies going everywhere. Sticking that alongside there and curving it in that direction, or you could use your centre cane. So that would go there alongside that one. Yeah, we'll give the centre cane a go. So I'm not going to cut it yet because I'm not sure how long I want it to be, but there, we're going to attach that to there, nice and secure all the way up. Okay, and then maybe just to about here. So the same goes for, whoops, the same goes for here. Let's measure this so they're about the same length. There we go. So we've got two the same length and they're flipping off in this direction. We'll take that onto there. Okay, so these then join together in a point like this. So from the side it'll look a bit more like that. Now, that's a flat surface. This is, you know, this has got a hollow. This is three-dimensional. So we need to bring in another one, maybe coming out here, that's going to join in there. So I might bring it from this side through the middle of this curve and join it onto there. And I think I might do that with withy this time. Let's see if this one's long enough, because I don't really want to use the very tippy point. So I could do this with two or one. I think I'm just going to do one this time. So let's see if I can do this without snapping it. So I'm working all the way along, bending withy very gently, and that'll give me a nice curved shape. If your withies, when you do this, are snapping far too easily, then they might have dried out a little. So what you could do is just stand them. I'd cut off the big fat ends, just a couple of inches off the big fat end, stick them all in, stand them all up in a bucket of water overnight, and then the next day they should all be nice and bendy. Right, so we've got a nice curve there, and whoop, stick that through there. Yeah, that will work. Okay, so I'll get my masking tape to hand. There we go, and stick that on, much like we've just done all the other joins, going around in all different directions and giving it a good squeeze. Right, now turn that towards me. So we're not going to use the very end, so snip that off, and I'm going to bring them all to roughly the same height, same length. Oh, and I didn't have any tape ready. Well, this is when you want the edge of your whole table to be full of tape. There we go. Right. Okay, and right, so now we've got quite an interesting shape going on there. Now, when it comes to papering, it's a lot more difficult to paper a huge section like this. It's better and easier for you to section one little bit at a time. So what we do is we break it up with a piece of withy. So then we'll only have to paper this bit and then this bit, rather than having to do the whole thing in one. So wherever we've got some big open spaces, it's a good idea just to add a bit of withy and break those big open spaces up a bit. This will all come apparent when we start papering why we've done all these things. It also makes a stronger lantern. So we're going to add that bit there, and I'm not trying to change the shape of my lantern with these, although you can, like we did before with pushing bits out. Okay, then we're going to turn it over like that. Yeah, and add a bit across here. So that is internal. This piece here is internal, so that's not necessarily, I mean, the bottom of it is part of our external shape, but this just go across here. And if we want to add a bit more strength, it's always a good idea just to, anything that crosses near each other, stick them together, and it adds more strength to your shape. So, okay, and I'll pop that onto there. Squeeze, and then this onto here. Okay, and then where they cross, where these two cross, yeah, that would work. I'll add that onto there. Okay, fantastic. Right, and then so we've got that side done, we've just done that one. Now we've got a great big open space here, haven't we? So let's add something to go across there, a fresh withy, and I'm going to add this one to here, about there. So because this is the bottom end of the withy and it is quite thick and chunky, I don't really want it to be sticking up outside of my lantern, so I'm going to add it to the inside this time. So that's masking tape. Good idea to break every so often and fill your table with masking tape. Nice long bits, okay, and so we'll add that in there. Oh, I was going to put it on the other side, wasn't I? So let's start again with that one. Put it on the underside, yeah, so it's not sticking out from the frame quite so much. Just add a bit more to that one. That's better. Feels much more secure now. Okay. Right. Now, what I'm going to do here is stick that onto both the centre cane and the withy here. I think, yeah. That can go that side and that can go that side, right? Okay. There we go. I could probably get away with using one piece of masking tape for both there. Naughty. There we go. Right. Now, oh, and then we've got this side. Yep, this side here to add something to. There we go. We'll just go straight across there with that one. Oh. That's tricky there because that other one's in the way, so I'm going to add it a little bit higher up. Now all these sticks, you will see them when the lantern's lit. There'll be a shadow, but that's quite nice, I think, on the framework to have these shadows crisscrossing it. So you can actually play with making shadows that you like. So with the centre cane, you could even make a circle to fit in here. So if you stick, I'll show you that. Oh no, yeah. So you could stick that together and then stick it to these 4 edges, and then you've got a circle inside. So all sorts of things you could do. The centre cane is great for making really tight bends. There we go. Right. So I'm going to cut off the extra on here. There we go. And now we've done those 4 edges. Next we've got these edges to do inside the curve, on the outside of these 2 curves. So what I'd like these edges to be is a little bit more curvy. So we've got straight edges everywhere else, but I'd like to curve these ones. So I'm going to use a centre cane and make a curve like that. Trying to do this so that you can actually see the curve. Yeah, that's probably the best way around. So it's going to go like that. So I'll cut the centre cane there. And yeah, about here we're going to attach it to the withies. And same on the other side here. There we go. And then where it crosses this withy here, I'm going to attach that on, going around one way and then the other way. Back again. There we go. Give them all a good squeeze. Right, so I think I'd like to curve and make some curves here. So these are flat planes, these 3 are flat, and these ones will be curved, and maybe I'll try and make a curve on this side as well, if I've got enough centre cane. Let's see. So it's just a small bit of centre cane to go there. Right. So this can also be bent like the withies. You need it a little bit more bendy and for it to stay in that bend. Inside or outside? Maybe on the inside here. So do one side first. Make sure it's bending in the right direction. My tape was a little bit too short, so I'm going to try that again. And then I'm going to do that one more time here, but a bit shorter this time, and give it a little bend again. and around, and one bit for here. So I think we need a ridgepole along the top of those curves, and we're going to make that out of withy. So find myself, there we go, a piece of withy. So something like that attaches to both rings and that one there. Yes, okay, so I'm going to chop away that tiny thin end. It's not much use to us. And take that onto there. So you can see you can just play around with all sorts of shapes here. And the important thing is to see the outside shape. So when I look at my lantern, I'm not looking at all of the sticks. This is the trick here. I'm just looking at the ones that are describing my outside shape. So I'm trying not to see this one going through the middle, but I am looking at the ones that are going to have paper attached to them, so the outside edges. So I'll take that off there and add this one then. So let's chop these extra bits off. So you can get involved, as involved, and make this as complicated or as simple as you like. So you could just start with the box and all of your uprights going to a point, but make sure your box is nicely triangulated where it needs to be, so turn it back into that box shape. Or you can get really fancy and start creating all sorts of lovely shapes in the top section of your lantern. So I'm just thinking what else I can do here. I think it probably could do with a little bit of withy going across the bottom there. Yeah, just to break up that shape and give it a little bit of strength. The centre cane is quite flimsy. It's fine, but it does need a little bit of extra strength sometimes. So we pop this one in. Extra bracing, and let's go there. And we've got that extra strength there. And then again, it breaks up that big shape. Easier for papering. So this is a triangular, this is more of a curved one here, and then this is more triangular. We could curve it on this side. I've got this tiny little bit of centre cane left. Maybe we could play around with that. Maybe turn that into a curve. Yeah, because it goes with that curve here, so it's a second curve we'll add to it. Yes, I think so. All right. So we pop that about there, maybe just above that one. And we turn that over all the way, and we just probably add that about there, I'd say. where it crosses over that ridge pole up here, I'm gonna give it a bit of tape. I'll strengthen all up still. Brilliant. Okay, so squeezing all these joins. Yep, and taking off. Ooh, nearly cut the wrong one. There we go. And I'm just going to suggest a few more ideas for different shapes that your lantern could be. You could curve off this face here by putting some curves in, so attaching that, or lots of these all the way up, and then I'd join them all together with an upright, so that's taped to each ring. You could do that to all the sides and have a completely curved lantern. You could have more spikes, or these could be even longer. They could go quite long out to here, straight up, sideways. You could have 3 different points coming out. It's really up to you. You can play around with it. Just keep hold of those basic principles. Any large spaces, that put some bracing in. And yeah, so you've got your internal space that's all one space. Don't worry about if something's going through it, that's fine as long as it's not too near the candle. And yeah, just have some fun with it. So now I'm just going to do a final check for stability, so give it a wiggle. So that way is feeling a little bit wobbly to me. So the two, if you holding points, the ones that wiggle more, those are the points that need bracing. So get some bracing onto that cross there. So that's going onto there. All the way up to here, so I cut what I think it could be, and then remember to hold it into the position. So I'd say that's probably a bit more square, so I'm going to hold it in that position. Yeah, and get some tape on there before I drop it. A little bit more. So yeah, if you go around your shape, when you think you've finished, maybe go around your lantern and just check for areas that need a bit more bracing. And the last thing that you just check the joints as well while we're at it. So I did see one around here that needed, yes, this one here needs a bit more tape. So yeah, just go around, check all of the joints. And it doesn't hurt to give any that in doubt, give them a little bit more tape. Okay, so once I've checked all my joints, checked for the strength of it, that could do with a little bit more as well. The next thing to do is just chop off all of those loose ends that might be sticking out a little bit too far. Trim that down. And this one. So I've trimmed my ends, I've checked the bracing, checked for stability all the way around. So now just ready to have a tidy up before we go on to the next stage, the messy bit. Okay, so next up is papering our lantern. So the first step of this stage is to cover the whole lantern in white tissue paper. So this is one I've done earlier, this is dried, and it dries quite tight. So when we're putting it on, it doesn't feel like it's going on quite tight, it feels quite saggy, but when it dries, it's great and tight. So what you'll need for this stage out of your kit is the white paper, the coloured paper, the sponge and the jar of latex glue. So you'll also need your well, you'll have to provide this yourselves. It's a plastic tray, and maybe a rag is useful just to wipe up any spillages, and a pair of scissors. So bring back my lantern, and there we go. So first thing is to open the jar. Oh, that's very full, and pour some glue into the tray. Right, this is latex glue, so it's most people will be fine getting this on their skin. If you're allergic to latex, wear gloves. It smells like fish, and it also, when you rub it, to get it off your hands, just rub, and then it turns into bogies. So on clothes it'll stain, it'll stick into clothes and hair. So I've got an apron on at the moment. Make sure all your hair is tied back. This table is fine because it'll just rub off when it's dry. If you're working on a table that you don't want to get gluey, you could just stick a bin bag down and work on top of that. So yeah, but make sure the bin bag's stuck down quite thoroughly, because you'll need a flat, steady surface to work on. So this tissue paper is different from the coloured paper in the fact that it is wet strength. So when this gets wet, it doesn't fall apart. When the coloured tissue paper gets wet, it falls to pieces. So we're going to work differently with the two tissue papers. Right, so let's pick a piece. So probably the first thing to do is maybe to rip it into 4 pieces. So that way rips fine. I might get my scissors and cut this way, because if you try and cut the other way, try and tear the other way, it just makes a mess. So one way the paper tears, the other way cut. So we've got 4 pieces there ready to go. And right, the idea here is to cover the whole thing. That's the base, the top, everything, all around the sides. And later on, we're going to be making a door so that you can light the candle, and a chimney hole at the top so that the heat from the candle that comes out somewhere. Otherwise, it gets too hot in there and the paper will catch fire. The other thing to remember is to not let any bits of paper fall into the inside. So I'll show you as we go along. So to start with your sponge and dip it into the tray. Now you're not soaking the sponge, you're just dipping one surface in and working from the middle of your paper out to the edges, wetting the whole thing. So try not to leave any bits unwetted. Now lift up the 2 corners that are nearest you and place them directly onto your lantern. There we go. Now I'm going to wrap these around the sticks and back on itself underneath. It won't feel like it's stuck that well, but when it dries it'll stick really great. So that's that little bit's covered there. It looks messy, but remember it will tighten up. There we go. Right, now for another piece. Now I'm not working really close to my body here, to the edge of the table, because if I was to go to the edge of the table, I'm going to get glue on the edge of the table and that will end up on my clothes as well. So just try and stay in a little way from the edge of your table. There we go. Lifting up the corners that are nearest to me and then sticking that to what we've just done. So it doesn't matter if they overlap. but you don't need to overlap massively, just a tiny little bit. And we'll turn this round and tuck it in on itself there. Great. Okay, now my fingers are getting a little bit gluey, so I'm just rub them off over there. There we go. Right, next piece. Maybe we'll go and do the bottom now. Turn that around. Okay. So just dipping the sponge in. If you dip the whole sponge in and get it really gluey and squeeze it, it'll turn into a rubber ball. So that's why we're only doing one surface at a time. There we go, lift that up, and then, ooh, which way around am I going here? Yay. There you go. Now the idea also is to not leave any gaps, so that when your lantern is lit, if there is any wind about, the candle won't blow out. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go up this surface here. So now it doesn't matter if you get glue on the underside of your paper, but really you just really need it on the top side of the paper, but it's fine if it gets there on the underside as well. So there you go. So these bits, I'm not letting them hang on the inside. These bits here, I'm not letting them hang on the inside of the lantern. I'm tucking them back in so that they're stuck to the paper on the inside, because those are the bits that we do not want catching fire, so they've got to be kept away from the candle flame. Great. So now I can see a little gap that I've left at the bottom there. You see that? So I'm going to just take a little bit of paper and do a bit of patchwork here. You don't even need to dip the sponge in every time. It just needs to be a thin layer of glue. There we go, great. So that's stuck to the piece underneath and the piece on the side. So I'm going to rip this up again. Oh, one way. And then cut in the other direction. One. Right, so I've got my 4 pieces again, and the glue. There we go. Holding the 2 corners that's nearest me, and so now the gluey side is furthest away from me, and I'm going to go up here. So really, I've just done one side and some of the others, so it's quite a quick process because we're using big bits of paper. There, going around all the edges and making sure they are stuck down to something, whether it's a stick or a piece of paper that's already on. Now anything that doesn't look like it's got enough glue on, I'm just going to get a little bit of glue on my sponge and go over it very gently, just tucking it into place. Okay. Go around this side, this edge here. Better. go over the top now. If you've got any fiddly areas, you could always make these bits of paper smaller so that, there we go, so that you're not struggling with large pieces in tiny fiddly areas. There we go. Oh, have I? Yeah. Great. And right, I'm going to go slightly smaller on this bit up here. So I'm going to rip my paper. Let's move that down from the screen. I'm going to go round this bit now. So which way? Okay, now even if I decided that wasn't quite right, I can always lift it off again, like that, and change my mind. Right, that's going there, and then wrap it all the way around and back on itself. Great. I think I could have just put a tiny bit more at the tip there, so I'm going to just add this tiny weeny piece. Whoops. So you don't want any spaces left uncovered. Right, that's enough. I'm going to take that bit off. There we go. Right, my hands are getting really gluey now. So there you go. There's the bogies. Get the bogies off. Right. Tuck that in. Okay, so I'm just going to, a little bit of a section here. Is that big enough? Yeah, this is always another way of doing it, is to hold a piece of paper that's not been glued up to your lantern, just to see if it's the right shape before you start gluing it. There we go, that's good. A little bit of a crack in it there though. Oh well, we'll have to patch that tiny bit up afterwards. There. Where did it go there? There we go. So we need a little bit around here, then we're almost done. Right, you should have plenty of paper in your packs to do quite a large lantern, so hopefully you won't run out. So I've just used 2 pieces of paper to do most of this lantern. I'm going to put a tiny bit on the end. Oh. Okay. I'll wrap that around the end there. Now no wind can get in and blow that candle out. And to finish off this stage, we're just going to go around and check for holes now. So, okay, I've got 1 hole here, so I'm going to get a piece that's not too much bigger than the hole, and that's because most of this lantern is covered with 1 layer of tissue paper. Some places it's double. You will see those places that's double. The light won't shine through quite as brightly, where there's 2 layers of thickness of tissue. So I'm going to try and keep those areas to a minimum. Okay, just a tiny little patch. Right, so when you've been at, there we go, pop it down. When you've been around the whole of your lantern checking for holes, the next thing to do is make the chimney hole. So we do need this hole, and it needs to be directly above the candle. So creating a hole here that is about 2 inches by 2 inches. I'm going to go, half the hole is going to be one side, of that of this piece of withy, and I'm going to do a little bit of a hole on this side as well, just to make sure it's big enough. So don't worry if a stick is going across your hole, that's fine. There we go. Okay, so next up is the door. So there's the hole for the chimney and the door hole. Okay, so now I'm going to look at where the ideal location for that is. Probably here, I'd say. We've got a nice big area. The door just needs to be big enough to put your hand in, so I can fit my hand. Obviously it can't have sticks going across it, so this time, so I'm going to create a door here. My tissue I've let pretty much semi-dry at least before I start cutting into it like this. So and I'm going to give it a square door here. Okay. Great. Now we need to make a door to cover the door hole. So the door, because this is latex glue, even when it's dry it's quite tacky still. So we're going to make a door, take 2 layers with 2 layers of tissue paper. So I'm going to cut this, I've just roughly torn it, but I'm going to cut this to be a rectangle that will fold up to be a little bit bigger than that doorway. So fold a piece of tissue in half and then cut it so it's a little bit bigger than your doorway. So it's got a good maybe inch all the way around, yeah, about an inch all the way around, so it's got, so we can seal it well. Because the latex glue, when it's dry, it's still a bit tacky, we can actually make this door stick to our lantern, stick shut. So we're going to open this back up again and there we go, glue all of the inside of it, and then fold it over on itself. That makes just a slightly thicker door. There we go. And we'll just use a sponge to stick those 2 halves together. Okay. Right. We're going to now let this dry. So if you leave it on, maybe not this surface because it's got so much glue on it, but a cleaner surface, let that door just dry. And around the frame, if you imagine there's a door frame around our hole, I'm going to put a bit of extra glue. This just helps it with its tackiness. So going around the door frame with a bit of extra glue. And when this is dry, we just peel it off the table and stick it onto our door frame. There we go. Okay, so now we need to let that dry. So when it comes to clearing up the table, you can just use a cloth to wipe it off. Any bits that remain, just rub them off, and then it all comes away. Don't be tempted to pour any of this down the sink because it will clog your drains up. So what we need to do now, this is dry, and all around the door is nice and dry, so we need to check inside for any little bits of withies that are sticking out, any bits of paper that are coming out. So have a little look through your door hole, check for paper, withies, masking tape that's sticking out, so we don't want anything to be near our candle. Also, the other thing to do is to just put your hand in the door hole and just check that your candle is upright, so coming straight up from that base. Okay. The next thing is we've got our door, it's dry now. We're going to stick this on. So we're just going to have one side of it stuck on hinged. You'll notice if you pop it on like this, it's tacky because we put that, especially because we put that extra glue on. So it sticks and then it will peel away as well. So but one side we need to stick properly down. So I think I'm going to stick this side, use a side rather than the top or bottom, and we're going to put a little bit of glue down this edge and stick that in place. There we go, just around the corner there. So now this should stick really nicely with no drafts. There we go, and open. So there we go. Great, so I'm going to stick that down so that our next stage just goes over the top of the door as well. So the next stage is working on the colour. So in your pack you'll have 6 different colours of tissue paper, and you can use any of these, all of these, just a couple or one colour. It's entirely up to you. Choose your colour, go back to your words that you wrote with Claire, and try and think about the colours or the shapes that you put down in the colours that most represent some of the words that you wrote. So I'm going to start with quite a dark colour at the bottom of mine. You can cut or rip, so use scissors or rip pieces. I'm gonna rip up some stripes, and these are gonna go upwards from the bottom. So now this tissue paper is not wet strength tissue paper. So we're not going to be painting it on the table like we did before with the white stuff. We're gonna apply the glue directly to the lantern, and just a little bit at a time apply the glue to the small areas that you want to work with. So once that's onto the glue, get a little bit more and just paint over using your sponge to make sure it's stuck down. So cover the whole thing in glue. Right, then I'm going to choose a different colour now. I'll go for some purple. There we go. And a little bit more on the white tissue. Now, I don't want to overlap them too much because it's, oh, I wanted a point there. Because otherwise I'm going to block out the light. So just try and mostly do one layer of tissue. Now you can see that I've brushed that too hard with my sponge. So that's okay. I'm going to just go over it with a different colour. Maybe bring a little bit of that in there. Plenty of glue on there already. There we go. So being really careful how you treat it, because it is only paper. Right, And another stripe. Okay. Oops. There we go. I'm going to flip to some red. Up this bit as well, so yeah, it's just good to be really careful with the how you brush. There we go, and then I'll go back to purple. I'm going to take my scissors now and just chop off any of these bits that are going underneath. Oops. You can paper the colour the underneath as well if you like. I'd certainly go round the bottom edge, so I am going to add a little bit more to this bottom edge. So just to make sure that this is all papered up. A little stripe here. Go. Now my door is hidden under there somewhere. While it's still wet, I'm going to open it. Just pick up one edge. There it is. Now I'm going to leave it a little bit open, and it might need some patching up in a while, but just don't want to lose the door completely. So I'm going to leave that flapped open so that it can just dry like that, and we'll give it another opening when it's dry. So you can just carry on like this. It'll regain its tightness once it's dry again. I'm gonna go to orange now, a little bit higher up. Pink. Lovely. Okay, and I'm going to go to orange. Sorry, yellow now. There, so it's to carry on with this, covering the whole lantern. If you want white bits to show, you can have white bits to show, but I think on mine I'd like it to be completely covered. So any little bits that I've missed, I'm going to add some patches to. There. Okay, and maybe a little bit in there. I'll use some pink. Yeah. Lovely. Okay. Oh, and there. So when this is dry now, work around the whole thing, and once it's dry you can then go back to your writing again, and using a felt tip pen, write any words that you like from your writing or add new ones. You can write, they're going to be much more visible if you do it on the lighter colours, but maybe you don't want them too visible. You could work on the dark colours as well. Use a felt tip pen of a darkish colour, so I've got a dark purple here. And that was one thing I was going to do, is up in the light colours I've cut out a heart here that I'd like to use. So I'm going to add a little bit more glue to up here. And I want that on that way, I think. There. So I might not go over that with glue, with the sponge, just in case I break it, but there, it's great. Okay, I'm happy with that. So yeah, there you have it. Once you've got your words on, you're pretty much finished. So thank you everyone for watching this video, and I hope you've all really enjoyed making these lanterns, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we can see you at the exhibition. We can have a great light all these lanterns up. They'll look amazing. So hopefully we'll find a dark space somewhere and have this exhibition, and that'll be really great. All right, hopefully see you all then. Good luck with it. Bye.